while he's doing that, I'm just going to start talking really loud because I can do that. So thanks everyone for coming and attending this event. It's really my pleasure, it's my privilege to be here with this distinguished panel of amazing panelists here. My name is Tim McConnell, and I've been part of the San Diego's ecosystem for robotics and autonomy and startups for, let's just say, quite a while. Those of you connected with me know that I've long been an advocate for San Diego as the hands-down best region to develop robotic and autonomous technology. So many reasons for this, and we'll drill down into the details here. This afternoon, our panel is going to be discussing deep tech here in San Diego and in the wider ecosystem. Our speakers are CEOs, founders, technologists, and roboticists with backgrounds in uncrewed vehicles, automation, defense technologies, and logistics. And I will introduce the panel members and then jump in with some conversations and let them all take off with brilliant insights for everyone. So there are, in the list of speakers, you'll notice for the event today, there are 4 Mike/Michaels, and we have 3 of them on the panel here. So Dan, when I call your name, you'll know I'm talking to you. The rest of you can fight it out amongst yourselves. We'll start here, and I'll go down the row here. Mike Sims is the founder and CEO of Imperium. He's a former U.S. Marine with experience as an Arabic cryptologic linguist, say that 3 times fast, and Marine Raider with U.S. Special Operations, completing deployments in Afghanistan, Iraq, Southeast Asia. After the military, Mike transitioned into finance and technology, Goldman Sachs, Lux Capital, and then he's co-founded a company called Imperium, which is an early-stage B2B marketplace for allied defense companies, so a way for defense companies to be able to ease their ability to access different technologies and equipment. Get that right?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Sorry, got him out of order here. Michael Brasseur, pronouncing correctly?
Yeah.
Oh, very good. He is Saab Incorporated's Chief Strategy Officer. He was the founder and first Commodore of the U.S. Navy's Task Force 59, which was a first of its kind organization dedicated to the rapid integration of robotics and artificial intelligence into Fifth Fleet operations. Saab has created a new role called Chief Strategy Officer, and Saab, for those that don't know, decided to create its new innovation center here in San Diego. And Michael's going to be running that innovation center. He had 26 years of service in the U.S. Navy, and he served at all levels of government, including the White House, the Pentagon, and NATO, commanded 2 warships, and launched and co-chairs the NATO Maritime Unmanned Systems Innovation Advisory Board. And the name of the innovation center is called SCAPA, and we'll learn more about that today. Mike Flanagan is the CEO and co-founder at CSATS, which is a San Diego company that manufactures and operates uncrewed surface vehicles. He's actually worked with Task Force 59, Navy Special Warfare, Scripps Institution of Oceanography, and other organizations. He's been an automation consultant with companies such as Tesla and P&G, bachelor's and master's in mechanical engineering and computer science. Finally, Dan Meiji is the co-founder and CEO of Firestorm Labs. Dan has a lot of work experience in various industries, but quite a bit in the uncrewed vehicle space. He co-founded Firestorm Labs in May 2022, and it's a really neat business model that he'll tell you more about. He also was the chief strategy advisor for Bonsai Robotics, board member at Beyond Capital, co-founded Elevate, and founded the Citadel Defense Company, early work in the drone space. They were acquired by Blue Halo a few years back. Any other things you guys want to pop in with, or that's sort of a overall?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So I'll jump in with some questions for all
Tim,
of you. Go ahead, Mike.
Some of you might think I might be on the wrong panel. For most of you, probably think of Saab as a car company, but it's actually a defense company. And we build fighter jets, submarines, and ships. So I'm on the right panel. I'm pretty sure, and I'm really excited for the conversation today.
Good. Love it. Love it. Okay, I'm going to start with my first question for you, Michael, and I'm going to then extend it to everyone else. So can you talk about why Saab chose San Diego as the location for its innovation center? And then I'm going to ask everyone why you think San Diego is the place to be doing these types of things and what the advantages are here.
Yeah, well, thank you, Tim, and thank you, Ellen, for the invitation to be here. This is a really exciting place to be. By show of hands, so I understand the audience, who has experience in the defense sector? Okay, so a decent amount in the defense sector. So, as I mentioned, Saab is a Swedish defense company. I work for the U.S. subsidiary of that company. And when we were looking to launch a new innovative effort called Skapa, which is Swedish for to create, to make, to shape, and that's exactly what we intend to do at Skapa. And the design of Skapa is envisioned to be doing this alongside the end user. Well, if you want to be alongside the end user in our industry, you come to San Diego. You have Naval Special Warfare here, you have the 3rd Fleet, you have most of the Pacific Fleet, you have the U.S. Coast Guard, the U.S. Marines not far away, NAVWAR, NIWC Pacific, they're all here in San Diego. That, coupled with really powerful universities like UCSD, USD, San Diego State, and then really exciting industry partners like CStats and Firestorm and Shield AI and Anduril not far away, EpiSci. This becomes the perfect place to be. And we at Skapa envision what we call the triple helix approach across government, academia, and industry. And so I just listed those folks, those key players here, right here in San Diego. And also, it doesn't suck here, which it's easy to attract a lot of talent. And we need talent to do the big, bold ideas that we're after at Skapa. So that's why we chose San Diego. We're very, very happy to be here. For me, it's like coming home. I spent the last 5 years of my Navy career here. And if I had spent the first 5 years of my Navy career here, I would have never left. But when I decided where I wanted to plant the Skapa flag, there was pretty much one choice, and it was San Diego.
That's terrific, Michael. Thank you, and welcome back. We look forward to seeing what you're all going to develop there. Mike, do you want to jump in, talk a little bit about your experience here in San Diego and how it's relevant and defense-related as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I did pretty much my entire military career on Camp Pendleton for almost 16 years, and I built out a maritime program when I was in special operations. And when you look at what's going on in San Diego, we are essentially the rear echelon from 7th Fleet, which is out of Hawaii, and then you have the first and second island chain. So you have the Federated States of Micronesia, the Pacific Island countries writ large. This is essentially the FLOT when things kick off, but hopefully not, but in 2027 or beyond. And so when you're looking at a concentration of naval power and marine power and basically littoral power, this is the seat, and it's readily accessible. Right south of LA, it's right north of Tijuana, which is an emerging industrial hub, and we have great weather. And then if you're building autonomous systems that need to access different environments quickly at a low cost, San Diego's a great place because I can go into the desert, I can go in the water, I can go in the mountains. And so it's basically a lab to be able to do a lot of different types of military training and a lot of different types of technology development and advancement here in San Diego. So much better than Austin, I would have to say. So, yeah.
I love it. Because Michael mentioned about 2/3 of the things I thought of why San Diego is the best place, and I had a few more, and I thought, I'm going to throw those in, and then you named the other third. So that's great. Yeah. Great. So, Mike, talk a little bit about your history here and why San Diego is the right place for CSATs.
Sure. Thanks, Tim, and thanks everyone for coming to this panel and listening. It's an honor and really exciting to be up here with such a great cast of speakers. San Diego, I think like some of the interesting things about San Diego are one from a startup perspective about recruiting and keeping top talent who are going to be focused and dedicated. I think that working on hard tech and very particularly working on defense tech, you very much need a team that is dedicated, mission-focused, and long-term focused. You need investors to match that mentality, and you need a team to match that. And so there are great other tech hubs throughout the United States, San Francisco very notably. But I would say that something we've noticed and really appreciated is when we attract talent, people are in it for the mission, they're in for the long haul. As Michael Brasser pointed out here, an interesting thing about San Diego is almost everyone has either served in the military or knows someone who's served in the military. So there's much more connection to national security issues. So when we pull people onto the team, we're not dealing with like, oh, our office has a spa, and so they quit after 10 months to go, jump to the next hot tech company. It's like, okay, people are joining, and they're willing to stick it out, and they want to work hard and work on problems that matter and impact things. So the combination of, I would say, talent pool, mission, and then really the co-location of so many great, particularly in the maritime space, huge Navy hub, Scripps Institute of Oceanography. This is just an epicenter of all great things for the space.
Awesome, that's great. And Dan, if you could extend a little on that, and also if you could just, thinking about the long haul comment that Mike made and wanting to think about how to keep investors here and going for the long haul. You've had some really good investment successes recently, and if you could talk a little bit about that and how we keep that rolling here.
I gotta just say I'm running out of stuff to say because we've already kind of talked about this to death. But I think about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, how VC started looking at San Diego changed. And I think that's going to pay dividends for the next 2 decades. Capital can go everywhere. I mean, I remember my last company, we did Series A from Lightspeed, a big firm in San Francisco. He told me, the VC told me this is the first deal he's ever done south of Austin. And that was like 7 years ago. And so the change in the unboxing, if you will, of capital constraints, I think is going to allow San Diego to flourish for all the reasons they mentioned, from the talent pool to, specifically for education, but then also companies we have access to. A quarter of Andrew basically used to work at General Atomics, and those folks are here. And you have Shield AI here, and you have a big talent pool out north. So both at the school level and then also at the professional level here, what we need to do is build a couple of lasting products. We don't have many Fortune 500s here, right? And so if you have kind of concentration of jobs at big companies, I do believe they help grow smaller companies because of the talent pool. That said, if you're invested in the mission, it's really easy to recruit people to come to San Diego because people don't want to live in Texas. This is what we found, frankly. So we fight that narrative all the time, and we're pulling really good engineers from around the country to come move to San Diego to work on what we're doing. So.
Nice, thanks, Dan. And since you had to go fourth on that question, I'll give the next one to you to answer first on. Can you talk a little bit, just sort of the changes you've seen over the past few years in the autonomous theater, UAVs, USVs, UGVs, and what you think the future is of that, and talk specifically about Firestorm and what you're doing there in that realm.
Yeah, so just let me set the stage for what Firestorm does. We use additive manufacturing in a partner-first approach, so an open hardware and software architecture to really rapidly build today Group 2 drones. Guys still developing Group 1 and Group 3 drones. Group 2 drone, our course is a 55-pound drone. We're also building a 10-pound drone, and we just won a contract to build a 250-pound drone. And they come out of a 3D printer, all right? So while it might take 5 to 6 weeks of human hours to build someone else's drone, we do it in 8 hours. It's rapid, it's fast. And now why is that important? Well, it speaks to what this question is actually asking, which is where's the market going? And all you have to do is go to Reddit and go to combat footage and go watch what the war in Ukraine has turned into. And you will realize that we are at least 3 or 4 years behind in the US with what is actually happening with the use of drones. And I'm talking things in the water, underwater, and in the air. We have $500 drones knocking out $2 million tanks 10 times a day in Ukraine, right? And you also have the Russian fleet, and Michael can talk to this, Russian fleet doesn't even operate like in Crimea anymore. The Ukrainians, for about $100 million, wiped out $20 billion of ships. So the future is here, it's autonomous, and we need to wake up because we have been so, we got away with using technologies like that we built in the Cold War, or we developed at the end of the Cold War during the Cold War on terror. We didn't have jamming environments. We didn't have GPS spoofers. Those things are now ubiquitous and they're everywhere. And stuff we're sending to Ukraine that we think is going to defend our country does not work, full stop. And it's in warehouses. Billions and billions of dollars of equipment that we have developed because we assumed there would never be someone who would use a jammer, just doesn't work. And so the future is going to be, in my opinion, like completely autonomous. The Ukrainians are now doing, on $50 chips, they're turning these $500 FPV drones into things that once you lock onto your target, the pilot doesn't pilot it anymore. And the next iteration is that is going to be a drone in the sky, picking out a target, and then it will automatically launch an FPV at it. This is a fundamental change to what warfare looks like. This is all open source, and they're doing this for tens of thousands of dollars, not for millions of dollars. So as you can tell, I'm really passionate about this, and I think it's actually a massive national security threat because we've not yet woken up to, if there is a conflict in the Chinese Strait, what does that look like with an unbelievable manufacturing capacity that is China, building stuff that could frankly overwhelm a lot of the legacy systems we've built. And we saw this all the time on the counter UAS side, all the time. $10 million systems being overrun by DJI drones that cost $500. So we've known this problem has existed for 5 years. We've had hubris in this country that we know better. And the world is just moving really fast, and I think it's going to be, I'm concerned there's going to be a really rude wake-up call here for us.
Fascinating reflection and turn of events, and I saved myself the trouble of going to Reddit. I just follow Dan's LinkedIn feed, and I get all the best videos on there. Michael, did you have any sort of follow-up thoughts on what Dan was just saying?
I would like to, sort of riff off what Dan said here and touch a few strings. Number one, my experience at Task Force 59 was driven by a sense of urgency and actually a sense of necessity. At Task Force 59, we were based in the Middle East and responsible for the securing the waters around the Arabian Peninsula. Well, many of our assets had been shifted to the Pacific, but we still had these same problem sets. So we, out of necessity, looked to robotics and AI to help get after some of those challenges in our region. And we were seeing immediate return on investment. And as Dan mentioned, it's pennies on the dollar in terms of robots versus destroyers. Now, obviously, it's apples and oranges as well as their different capabilities. But the type of capability that Mike brought out, and we were trying to bring Dan out to Task Force 59, was really a game changer. And you see that play out in Ukraine. When you look at the China situation or the situation in the Pacific, the cast is already sort of, the die is already cast with respect to large assets, ships, submarines, and aircraft. The real space where we can make a credible deterrent to prevent a war in the Pacific is in the space that we operate, the robotics and AI space. And the thought being here is you want to change China's calculus so they don't even think about invading Taiwan, all right? So you want to make it so difficult. And this is the trade space. It's the only trade space we have because we're talking, essentially 2027. And this is the only space that we can really move the needle, so to speak. And so, yeah, Dan, some really prescient comments there from Dan, And yeah, just wanted to shed
Great,
my own
thanks.
experience.
Makes sense. Mike, I'm hoping maybe you can riff off what Michael said. If you could talk, your experience with Task Force 59 and how that kind of leveraged into your starting up CSATs.
Absolutely. Yeah, both what Dan said and what Michael said, I think some of the change that we're seeing in pace of technology, and we're seeing this across many industries, the speed and the scale that things are changing means like everyone, US government included, needs to have a very different way of staying on top of what is present and what is relevant. If you go through a very rigid, stepped out spacing of how you evaluate technology, then you can get caught by something that came out halfway through your development cycle or halfway through your test cycle that totally outstrips what you're working with. I mean, look at ChatGPT or look at any of the AI tools that are coming out. It's like if you were building something that was in that space, a month beforehand and you're almost done, like good luck a month later. I mean, the whole table has changed. So I do think that like one of the great things that happened at Task Force 59 and is still happening at Task Force 59 is pulling together products and evaluating them in a merit-based, like, hey, let's get these things out there, let's test, is really critical. For us, we leverage that in two places, both by going to like Navy experimentation events and showing our platforms through the traditional pipelines, also by selling dual use and commercial. Because if you can have the case that, hey, business units like across the US and across the world are purchasing our products and using them for these like practical missions, then they will definitely get repurposed for defense missions, which is what you see with commercial drones in Ukraine. I mean, you're seeing initially consumer products that previously would have been evaluated or not even allowed into a defense evaluation pipeline. Someone would have said, that does not meet the specs that we need. It wouldn't have been accepted to like an RFI or an RFQ or an experimentation event. Now they're being produced by the thousands a day or tens of thousands a day and are making those other things obsolete. So yeah, I mean, we're living this. I think we're all living this. And at CSATs, we're living this in the maritime space. We build 10-foot solar-powered autonomous vehicles. If you're here in San Diego, you can look on marine traffic, and you'll see them out off the coast, and you'll see them in different parts of the world. We're doing this every day, and yeah, it's an exciting and maybe a scary time to live.
Yeah. Very cool. Very interesting. So, Mike, just continuing for a little bit on the defense side, and then I want to go a little commercial as well. But on the defense side, can you tell me how do the forces stationed here in San Diego benefit the defense tech companies and investors and national security at large?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing I've seen, I was an operator using these things, and I was just telling Michael that my job at the very end of my military career was doing targeting undersea infrastructure using robotics. Well, we didn't have all the robots. I don't know where you guys were, but we needed them. But the idea was we had a giant whiteboard, and for basically, maybe 18 to 24 months, all we did was plan undersea infrastructure attack for contingencies. And so there's huge gaps there. There's different things. But one of the things that it made me realize was autonomy or robots will actually force us to attack sovereign states, to attack the supply chain. So in a counterterrorism or a counterinsurgency where there's things happening within a political boundary, it's a lot easier to control. But when the supply chains are beyond that environment, you're either only putting Band-Aids on, which is what Ukrainians are doing, or you have to strike deeper and hit the factories and the scientists. So the most dangerous job probably in Iran is to be a nuclear scientist, right? And so we've seen what's happened to some of them, right, that are tied to different national or programs in Iran, right? That exact same thing is going to happen here. It's going to happen in all these industrial centers because we're going to have to strike those factories, right? So what I think investors and technologists need to do, or why San Diego is a great place, is they can get to that person who's actually responsible for planning these things and considering them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in isolation out of like a closet somewhere in the battle space where there was no distraction. All they did was think about how to do these things. So what San Francisco doesn't have necessarily are those types of people. But in San Diego, you have everybody who's here that's working on that problem all the time. So if you can get in there, right, and you're developing a product, you should probably be getting down to that end user whose entire job it is to plan these things to make sure that the product that you're developing actually is something that's desirable and can be used in a line item of thousands of line items that they're charged with of solving. And I'll cap that off real quick. we have the Defense Intelligence Agency of the CIA, right? CIA, DIA. CIA for politics, DIA for defense. DIA's charter is to go out there and understand what's happening in the adversarial space. That information gets piped back into a big giant framework called the National Intelligence Priority Framework. It's basically a never-ending scroll of intelligence requirements, right? All of those things get factored into budget, which go into technology, which ultimately Dan and Mike are building and Michael are building, right? So if you're building technology, you don't understand how that works, potentially you're building a technology that's not in a budget pipeline. And so it's not actually useful to somebody who's charged with actually solving that problem. So I think San Diego is great because you have close access to those types of people that they show up to work. They drive up and down the I-5 every day that are going into a skiff trying to solve that problem. You're not going to find that in San Francisco. You're not going to find it in Austin. You're not going to find it in Boston necessarily. These are the people that are getting on planes flying into Asia right now or in the Middle East to go work those problems directly. And so that's where I think we have an incredible access to the actual end users, not acquisition, not logisticians, but the actual operators that are pressing buttons and putting their lives at risk. So I'll cap it there.
Yeah, that's a great insight. And so we have talked quite a bit about, the defense applications and how critical that is in today's geopolitical environment, especially since the invasion of Ukraine. We've seen so much happening in this space, and so we're kind of leapfrogging the technology and now using things that previously weren't used in that space, and there's more investment in that space. I want to think a little bit and ask you all about, sort of the dual use side of things. When we're out of this exact environment that we're in, we still want to keep the long haul investments here and this technology being developed here. How do you all picture some of the things that we're developing now with defense in mind translating into commercial uses and other types of applications? And anyone can jump in, go.
So I'll go real quick if you don't mind. So I think dual use is tied to the State Department's definition of dual use for export controls and different things, for the missile control regime or whatever. Practically, though, it's everything is dual use from a pen. What people don't realize is that Google and Microsoft Word have done more damage to the enemy than any other piece of technology out there. The third of that, which I'll credit to Will Allen, who's in the defense and investment space, is Facebook, right, through an information operations campaign. So at the end of the day, what Ukrainians are proving is that, and what these three gentlemen are proving, well, mainly for Mike and Dan, or that you can take off-the-shelf components, synthesize a capability, deploy it, get the intended effect, and then pull out, build something brand new, and go after the next target. Because our job in the military isn't to be stuck on a problem forever, it's to solve problems. And then as soon as we solve that problem, we go on to the next problem, which requires a different synthesis of solutions, right? So COTS is the fastest way to get to a solution at the end of the day. And our adversaries have proven that for the last 25 years, from COIN to the front lines of Ukraine, and so we need to be able to follow suit there.
Yeah, I'll just sort of riff off of that. So from two perspectives. First from the Task Force 59 perspective, where we were primarily leveraging dual-use technologies. Mike's, sail drones, sail drones are used for collecting environmental data. We also found it very useful in collecting information to enhance maritime domain awareness. The second point I wanted to make about, and just what Mike was saying about, as I launched SCAPA, and when I look at our product portfolio in Saab, which is really diverse, what I think the real exciting and the powerful thing is the convergence of all these emerging disruptive technologies to create new capabilities. And so our main focus is essentially to make every product smarter. And there's an opportunity here because we have our existing fleets. The hardware is what it is. But you can really enhance the hardware through software enhancements and enhance the capability. So that's the sort of space that we're looking at, and we're leveraging dual-use commercial tech to do that.
I'll jump in with a quick note. I guess one of the reasons that we're excited commercially, and really commercial and scientific, is the cost to do business on the ocean is wildly expensive. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but to get a ship to go out to sea, real numbers, it's like $2,000 a day all the way up to $50,000 or $100,000 a day. And these are not like only the largest organizations. I've talked to people in science institutes and they're like, yeah, and then weather happens and this happens, or we get delayed, a part breaks on a ship, and we're talking $40,000 to $55,000 a day in operations costs. That's so expensive. And because it's so expensive, they're often operationally planning around, like, we'll be in a meeting, they're like, well, the ship's coming down from Maine, or the ship's coming down from Washington, and we're talking about something off the coast of California or in a different part of the world. There are very few ships, and it's very expensive. So I think there's a lot of ocean companies out there doing great work democratizing ocean data, saying, hey, we can use robotics and we can scale them, and we can make it much easier to get those lower cost missions very scalably and affordably.
So I guess to wrap it up, for us, what we've seen is because we're using additive manufacturing to build the airframes for our business, we've really thought about how does the platform, the manufacturing platform we build, exist past, let's say, a potential conflict where we need tens of thousands of attritable drones. And what it's really come down to is that additive manufacturing in the last 10 years has come an incredibly long way. And the printers we use, their biggest customer, their HP printers, is actually the medical device industry, okay? So we're building defense drones and medical products on the same platform. And I think what we need to be thinking about as a country is, we all know we need to reshore, and we all talk about revitalizing the industrial base. We should be leveraging and training people on technologies like what we use so that it doesn't just have to be defense articles that can be coming off of them. Manufacturing is going to fundamentally change in the next 10 years. It's going to be very roboticized. It's going to be additively powered. And so that's the opportunity here, is to build with that infrastructure in mind and be looking forward.
Well, that's terrific. I appreciate everything that you're all doing and the thoughts you have for advancing this technology in the region. I hope everyone will show your appreciation for our great panel today.